Well, hello there and welcome to the Trending Now podcast for this Friday, December the 1st, 2023. I'm your host, Louie Butko, back after a few weeks off. As always, no shortage of topics to dive into on today's show as we recap the week that was on Trending Now, which you can catch every Monday to Friday, 7 p.m. and 11:30, or streaming live on chch.com and our Trending Now YouTube page. Coming up on today's show, NATO allies have agreed Ukraine will join the alliance after their war with Russia ends. Matt Ingram is hosting Trending Now and joins us with that story. Plus, a cash-strapped city of Toronto strikes a deal with the province, allowing Doug Ford's government to continue with its controversial redevelopment of Ontario Place on the city's lakeshore. Also, Google strikes a deal with the Canadian government to pay Canadian media companies $100 million annually for published content on their platforms. Jason Gaidola had that story and will join us later on in the show. And were you Spotify shamed this week? The popular music streaming service rolls out their annual listening charts, combing through your music history, and this year's most streamed artist will not surprise you in the least. Laura Sebben stops by with more. But first, we start with the war in Ukraine, where NATO Secretary General says the allies have agreed the nation will join the alliance after the war with Russia ends. To discuss that, we bring in Matt Ingram, who is hosting Trending Now. Matt, pretty. Was this expected? Is this a big move? Like, what did we make of this on Monday?
Expected. Like, we knew that it was very unlikely that Ukraine would be admitted to NATO during the war, because obviously that has implications that would drag the rest of NATO into the war with Russia. Not that NATO countries aren't supplying Ukraine with vast amounts of military supplies and money and political capital, but it was expected that confrontation would have to wrap up before they would formally be allowed to join. Ukraine's going through a similar process right now in that they are on their way to joining the European Union. And as part of that process, they have to do a number of reforms as set out by the European Union. Those ones focus mainly on corruption and other issues within how they're governed. However, for NATO, it was said that there are also going to be reforms that Ukraine will have to conduct, and what exactly they will be were part of the conversations this week at the NATO ministerial meetings.
Now, you talked about the vast amounts of military equipment and supplies that NATO has already given. So where is NATO as the war currently stands? Because there's a lot going on with Israel and Hamas, and people are maybe forgetting about the war in Ukraine. Like, where is the war in Ukraine as we stand right now?
Well, a top Ukrainian general has recently called it a stalemate. The front lines haven't moved much in a year. There is one point where Ukrainian forces are reportedly making advances. That's in the south. So you may remember in the start of the war, there's a city named Kherson in the south. It was occupied by the Russians, but then after, I believe it was about a year of occupation, the Russians withdrew because there's this big river. They withdrew across the other side. Basically, it was a defensive maneuver so that they could pull troops away to focus on the eastern front. So Ukrainian Marines have now crossed that river and have taken up positions on the far side and are pushing Russian forces further and further back so that they can no longer shell the city of Kherson, which is now controlled by Ukrainians and has people living in it again. So that's one area where there's motion, but for the most part, it's a stalemate.
On the winter weather playing havoc or slowing everything down.
Absolutely.
And we saw this last year as well. Once winter rolls around, it's harder.
You would think that, but there are still a lot of intense battles going on. There was a video released just in the last week from one of the trenches on the Eastern Front. Intensely fierce, graphic, horrific, just horrible. So, with all war, as I've come to learn, the wintertime is a period where you would expect advances to slow down. There are still very fierce battles going on.
Yeah, local officials intercepted more than 40 drones in an attack last weekend.
Yeah, that was the attack on Kyiv. Yeah.
Which officials say was the largest drone attack since the start of its invasion. Going back more than a year. Also trending trending this week, a story you were working on, was the Ontario place.
Yeah.
As the cash-strapped city of Toronto made a deal allowing the Ford government to continue with its controversial redevelopment. As part of it, Ontario will take over responsibility for two major Toronto highways, the Don Valley Parkway and the Gardiner Expressway. I thought I saw one tweet that summed it up pretty well, that this is a deal that John Tory would be praised for years had he signed it. The fact that it's Olivia Chow is concerning for some, considering she ran on a plan of defending Ontario Place.
She was against Ontario Place, but, Toronto is in a very desperate financial situation. They need money. And uploading the costs of maintaining the Don Valley Parkway and the Gardiner, and for anyone who's lived in Toronto, you can't avoid those two highways. But, it makes a lot of sense. They're not really Toronto highways in the sense that I believe the figure is 300,000 people drive it. I forget what the figure was. But the point I'm trying to make is people from throughout the GTHA use these highways on a regular basis. Toronto is the economic capital of Ontario. It makes a lot of sense to have the province take these over, and in exchange, Doug Ford gets what he wants on Ontario Place, which is the City of Toronto stepping out of the way so that the controversial redevelopment plans can go ahead.
It's pretty interesting because, on a day that this deal is announced, a Hamilton contingent was also at Queen's Park talking to Paul Calandra, Minister of Housing. So you get the sense that these deals are going to be worked out for municipalities that are, strapped for cash. It's not just Toronto. We've talked a lot on the Newsmakers podcast with a lot of local politicians, councillors of that nature. Bill 23, the Ontario government, Bill 23, took away a lot of financing options available for municipalities. So it's sort of like the government, like, okay, now we can help you out. But it's interesting. And the Gardiner, I avoid at all costs.
Yeah.
I avoid at all costs.
I know.
No matter what. I will walk from Exhibition Station if it means avoiding the Gardiner Expressway.
In previous lives, I've been a daily Gardiner and Don Valley Parkway commuter. They're very busy. Not always the best maintained highways. I'm sure we all have seen the photos of underneath the Gardiner of it kind of falling apart.
Well, they're trying to put parks and stuff under there now,
which is
right?
cool.
Liberty Village,
that skating rink thing.
Skating rink. Did you do?
Cool.
Have you done it?
I've driven by it. I haven't done it yet, but it's pretty cool.
Like along Fort York there.
Yeah,
there's
right
some good
there.
spots. Before we let you go, big story from yesterday as a titan of 20th century U.S. foreign policy passed away when former U.S. Secretary of State Henry Kissinger passed away at the age of 100. Safe to say he was a complicated figure.
Yeah, I think that's the way I phrased it in the story. The words that kept coming around: revered by some, reviled by others. This is a man who is celebrated for his diplomatic works to establish better relations between the U.S. and China in the 1970s, but at the same time is hated by some and called a war criminal by some for his propping up of the Pinochet regime in South America, of his advocacy for, brutal bombing campaigns in North Vietnam and Cambodia. Definitely a complicated figure and one that is divisive.
I mean, he is really the actual almost Forrest Gump in terms of everything that he was involved in, right? I mean, he was there at Watergate. He was involved in World War II. Really, 100 years, he is one of those guys. And even, I think it was Biden's statement that was we often disagreed on many issues. And that's, I feel like, how people are looking back on him. There were a lot of people who, like you say, will never have anything to say about Henry Kissinger.
One of the historians I spoke with said, he was motivated by fear of what could happen to the U.S. And basically this guy was saying that he advocated policies to be very, very hawkish, very, protective of America because he believed that America was at threat from things that, in hindsight, the threat maybe just wasn't there.
And he survived the Nixon administration.
He survived right? Watergate. He wasn't in. Yeah, it is interesting.
How you escaped scot-free out of that when it seemed like nobody did.
Totally. And you can't really take him and Nixon separately. They worked together, right?
And he continued to have a impressive career up until...
He did. He was Ford's Secretary of State, and then after that, he kept himself involved in international...
We're about to talk to Jason Gaidola about this story, Cyber Monday. Going to go back to Monday. Did you buy anything for Cyber Monday, Black Friday? Did you need anything? Did you buy anything?
I didn't actually buy anything. You know, you always
Neither did I didn't need anything, and I was like, you know what? I'm not even going to look at the flyers. I'm not even going to look, because I'm not a big Amazon guy to begin with. I don't like the courier drivers everywhere driving, dropping. So I don't use Amazon.
I did buy a bunch of stuff at Labor Day, so I guess I wasn't real. I needed some stuff at Labor Day, and there were some pretty good Labor Day.
There you go. Yeah. All right. Okay. Thanks for doing this, man. Appreciate you got a show getting ready for it. Matt Ingram.
Thanks, sir.
My thanks to him for joining me. All right. As mentioned, also trending this week, Cyber Monday. We're following the busiest shopping day of the year, which was last Friday, Black Friday. Consumer experts were expecting record numbers of shoppers to spend their cash on Cyber Monday, and boy, did they ever. But with the cost of living on the rise, experts say people are looking for the best bargains to counter the harsh impact of high inflation. Now, this year's Cyber Monday was expected to be the biggest shopping day of all time. According to web analytics by Adobe, U.S. consumer spending online was expected to top off at $12.4 billion this season, which is sales generated between American Thanksgiving up until Monday. And to discuss this, we bring in the man who was on this story, that being Jason Gaidola.
Yes,
and Jason Gaidola, did you partake in any Black Friday, Cyber Monday, impulse buy, something you were looking for, anything?
Sadly, no, because it's just for the simple fact where I'm looking at this discount and I'm trying to do I'm not procrastinating as much this year as
because a lot of people
past.
use Christmas shop. Like a lot of people, like even if it's not for you or something you need, you'll get Christmas shopping done. But
for what I was looking for or potentially looking for, I made the choice. I'm like, is this discount really justifiable at this price?
Yeah,
I kind of get like that when I shop, but I did not pull the trigger.
So you're
Black
not
Friday.
an impulse buyer. You're not somebody.
Not as much.
Okay,
I do. It depends though.
Yeah.
It has to be like a really focused item, but on the everyday.
I spoke in front of a group of students a couple weeks ago, and one of the questions asked me about like suits and stuff, and like, oh, what do you wear? And I was literally wearing something like I was wearing now, like a hoodie and like track pants and like my bright shoes that if you're watching, you can see they're very bright. And I was like, I am the wrong person to ask for that. Cause like, again, I don't plan shopping trips. Like I'm not like, I need a new suit jacket or I got to go get this or I need this. Just like as I need something, like if my TV were to break tomorrow, then I'm getting a TV.
No, and that's fair. It's like you replace as you go. But if there's one thing that I do, I guess in relating to Cyber Monday is I've been shopping more online. I'm not going to the brick and mortar anymore, and that's where the concern is in terms of shopping for the future.
What is it about online? Is it just the convenient? I mean, like, do you buy clothes online? Like, because a lot of people will just refuse. They need to try it on. They want to try it on. Some people aren't inconvenienced by the fact that if it doesnn't fit, I can just send it right back.
It probably, I don't know, a new wave came through. Because I do recall I'm back in the day where eBay was pretty popular, and there was a stretch where I was shopping on eBay quite often, Kijiji, but those platforms.
But COVID, when you were not allowed,
exactly,
you were only allowed 100 people in the mall at once, right? Like a lot of people got hooked on the idea of it just being delivered, and that's all they come to expect now.
Amazon could be a dangerous place.
I've been told I don't even have my own Amazon account. Like I do not have Amazon. Like the one or two times I've had to order it when I was in PEI. Again, during COVID, I had to order like a hoodie because it was like August, but I didn't realize that like it still gets cold at night.
Yeah.
PEI. So it got down to like 10 degrees. So I needed a hoodie because I didn't pack anything. So I borrowed somebody's
Atlantic
Amazon.
dampness.
Oh, it's awful. You also had a story this week on Bill C-18. And just to give our listeners an update on that, the federal government says Google agreed to a deal that will pay Canadian media companies $100 million annually for published content on their platforms. The move comes as the Trudeau government's Online News Act will come into effect at the end of the year. The legislation demands tech giants compensate news companies for their value. This is interesting. I was talking to our news director, Greg, about this because like I didn't get it. Where's this money going? What's happening? What's happening with this $100 million?
That's a great question. And from what I was told this week in the story, to recap, they still have to define who is an eligible journalist or how many eligible workers you have in a newsroom or a station, etc. So until they determine, I don't know what this committee is going to look, or we don't know what this committee is going to look like. We don't know who's going to be the power broker to the arbitrator, because there is questions. I'm like, how much money is going to go to who, and who knows? That could be.
It could be about media, because
it may be a contested debate.
It's a news media consortium which hasn't yet been formed, and they're just going to give $100 million or $100 million in kind, is what I've been told. That there could be some advertisement trades or barter.
Yeah, there's going to be conditions to it.
But the fact that Ottawa was expecting a little bit more money from Google, they wanted $172 million, but it seemed that a lot of people within the industry were even pushing back on the government to get this deal done.
Yeah, there was a lot of urgency there, and however people judge it, however the federal government handled it, the fact of the matter is, a deal was done.
Which with Meta, there's not.
There's no deal. There's no deal. And Meta did reach back out to me during while I was filing the story. But Google just seemed to be. I guess they were not very clear on their core issues with it. But it seemed like they were willing to go to the table, and they came to an agreement with something. $100 million is $100 million, but at the end of the day, spread across the board, deciding who gets what. Is it really going to save journalism? It's a legitimate question.
It seemed like the argument that Google, it means more for news to be on Google than it does Facebook.
Yes,
because Google is a service, something you go out and look for information. So if I'm looking up stabbing Hamilton, I'm going searching for that. I would hope that there'd be local articles that would link to us, or us. Hopefully.
Absolutely, yeah.
And Facebook, again, something just shows up on your feed. They're just driving. They just want the engagement. They just want the likes.
And it's apples and bowling balls. I'll probably say, right?
Apples and bowling balls.
It's a different beast, and I think with Google's a more because that's more information based. When it comes to the social media like Meta, Facebook, Instagram, that's just people that's an entertainment platform, or very social, and so it's a lot muddier. And will they come through? They're probably not. I don't see Meta coming to the table. They've seemed like they've made their. I'm based off the answer that I got. Yeah. They're going to stand pat, but the one with Google seems probably. I think that was the more probable and likable option.
Big plans for the weekend? No concerts, no hockey games?
No,
pretty busy I will.
You know what?
Fridays. You went to Metallica.
Yeah, in Detroit.
Brantford Bulldogs London Knights game. You've been busy on the weekend.
Yeah, I've been trying to, I like to support local, and minus me and being in Detroit. But there's some good, we're entering in a new
December, man.
A new era of but a new season of sports.
Yeah. Exactly. College football. I was actually pretty invested in college football on Saturday. Michigan and Ohio State.
Yes,
that was a good one. The Alabama one later in the night. So yes, I'm with you. Sports. It's going to be a big sports weekend. Jason, thanks for doing this, man.
Appreciate it. Thanks.
All right, Jason Gaidola. My thanks to him for joining me on today's show. Coming up in just a few moments, we'll be joined by Laura Sebben, the producer and co-creator of Trending Now, and she's going to be here to discuss the Spotify Wrapped. Yes, as the lists recapping everything we've experienced for 2023 are starting to surface, and this week's Spotify Wrapped, an annual list that combs through music listening history around the world, breaking down top artists, genres, songs, and more. And there is no surprise at who was number one, because she was near the top of the list of our guest, Laura Sebben. And for all the hating that you do on T Swift, was she not in your top five?
No.
Oh, what? Was she not? Oh, I thought she was. Oh, okay.
No, there was another.
It was
country
Joanna
artist.
and Emily had her number one, did they not?
Or close to it, yeah.
They're up there.
Maybe
Yeah.
Simone too, but
Yeah, it's definitely Simone for sure. Taylor Swift number two for me.
was she?
She was number two.
Wow.
Yeah.
Who was your number one?
Art Kells.
Oh, that's a good one.
Yeah, that's a very, anyone who would know me would just say, Art Kells, Louie, yeah.
That's good.
Yeah, who's your number one?
I can't publicly disclose that information. I could tell you my number two was Doja Cat, and I'm seeing her in concert in 2 weeks. So.
In 2 weeks?
Yeah, she's coming on the weekend.
She was in the news recently because she was slamming her. She doesn't like her followers. Doesn't she post mean things on Instagram? Mm-hmm. She doesn't want to be famous or something. And then
I don't think it's that she doesn't want to be famous. She just thinks like
she got that Paint the Town
fan
Red song.
Yeah,
that
banger.
Song's good. That song.
She just thinks the fan artist relationship is a little bit weird, and she hasn't shied away from expressing that. So
In what way?
Like
the obsessive nature.
Yeah, like she's being like, you guys don't know me. Like, live your lives.
Y'all don't
kind
know
of thing.
me.
Like, you know what I mean?
That's how I am with viewers in public. I'm kidding. I'm actually really nice. I'm actually really nice in public. If you do come up to me, I'm really nice. But I mean,
Okay.
I can see that. Like,
Well, yeah. We don't discuss number 1. Number 2 is Doja Cat. Number 3 was Beyonce.
I had to go to my Apple Music.
Yeah, so did
'Cause I'm
I.
an Apple Music guy. I don't use
am
Spotify. Taylor Swift, Spotify's 2023 most played artist. She raked more than 26.1 billion streams since January 1st. So she dethroned Puerto Rican superstar Bad Bunny, who had held the title for 3 years.
Yeah.
What?
Yeah.
So 2020, 2021, 2022. I don't think I could tell you a Bad Bunny song.
That's actually crazy.
I know who he is. I've seen him.
Well, that's fine.
He's got like that Spanglish kind of way of talking, right? Like,
Well, up until recently, he like wouldn't speak in English when he did public appearances because he was like, I'm Puerto Rican, so if you guys like me, you can listen to my...
Un Verano Sinti.
That's close enough.
Yeah?
Yeah.
Okay. It was the most streamed album for the second year in a row. 4.5 billion global streams. Taylor Swift's Midnights was second. SZA's SOS. And then you got Starboy.
Right? How random is that?
So the 7-year-old album?
Yeah, apparently it was like all the
Miley
rage.
Cyrus's Flowers. She was in my top 5 of
Was
that
she?
song. I think was definitely in my top 5 for songs.
Yeah, I think it broke some sort of streaming record this year, so not surprised.
Good for them.
yeah.
These other Luis Fonsi. Oh, that Despacito.
Okay, yeah, but that was just
Morgan Wallen.
Yeah, yeah.
That's you. Nothing about Morgan Wallen on your charts.
I don't know. Don't know.
Nothing about Morgan Wallen on your charts. All right.
If there was, I don't want to talk about
Okay.
it.
All right. Okay. Moving on. It's not
but
the lights.
Kelly-
It's not the red point.
Kelly Botello. I don't know if anybody remembers her.
Kelly. I remember Kelly.
But Kelly she was in the top 1% of Bad Bunny listeners.
What? Yeah. Bad Bunny is in like the most streamed. She was in the top 1%, like globally.
Apparently, that's what Spotify told her.
So of the 4.5 billion streams
Yeah.
of her album, she might have had like,
Probably not a billion, but
well, obviously not a billion. That's a lot of minutes. That's a lot of minutes.
what? So your top artists are Kel's. How many minutes did Apple say you listened to them?
I believe going into might be 2,000.
Okay, that's reasonable, I feel.
Yeah. I did see one on Twitter that was like in the 0.00000% of Taylor Swift.
Yeah.
And then someone did the math and it's like that's the equivalent of 214 days.
Yeah, so I
listening
did
to
something
Taylor
similar
Swift.
because most people I know are we're in the 2,000 minutes range, like in the higher 1,000s. My one friend, she sends us hers. Her top artist is Drake. She listened to him for 17,717 minutes. I was like,
Did you do the math?
yeah, it's like almost 12 days. Which, like, I love Drake, but like, I'm like, do you not listen to anybody else? Like, that's a crazy number of minutes to be listening to one person.
R. Kel's, Taylor Swift, Vance Joy, Morgan Wallen, George Ezra.
Okay.
Top 5.
Yeah, mine, I won't say number 1, but Doja Cat, Beyonce, Rihanna, and Carly Rae Jepsen are Canadian.
Look, Canadian content. Patty Kane is signing with Detroit Red Wings. This one was kind of out of left field. I didn't see Detroit.
No.
We heard Toronto. We heard Buffalo, going back to New York. But the Detroit Red Wings signed a deal for a prorated $2.75 million. He turned 35, rehabbing from hip resurfacing surgery. Expectations for Patty Kane?
I honestly... Like, given, I know he has to kind of prove himself because he's coming off of the surgery, but like 1 year, like that's it. That's all you
Really?
could get people to like get you
Oh
for?
no, he only wanted 1 year though. Is what I heard.
Okay.
Was that he didn't want to commit to a team. He wanted to go to a team that could win. And the Red Wings are surprisingly good this year. They're 12-7-3. They're currently in a playoff position, tied for third place with the Leafs in the Atlantic Division.
Okay. I saw somebody made a joke saying that using like Thanos and saying that he's collecting original 16.
Yeah. This is
Like Infinity Stones. Third.
Is third. Yeah, there you go. Follows a similar path. He's chasing Mike Modano for the U.S. scoring record, and Mike Modano played 20 seasons for the North Stars and Stars before he finished his career with the Red Wings. I don't think Patty Kane's going to finish his career.
No, I don't think so either. Like, I guess depending, but if he's rehabbed and feels comfortable on the ice, like, I think he's going to be okay.
73 points last year, right? He still had a pretty good year last year.
And they were saying when I was writing up that story that he had like, it was like a lackluster year. I'm like, okay.
You went to Toronto last weekend? The weekend before? You got big plans this weekend?
Well, yeah, when did I go to Toronto?
A couple weeks ago.
I'm just going out for dinner on Saturday.
Somewhere fancy?
Industria in Stony Creek.
Oh.
Do you remember Anastasia?
Yeah.
She invited a couple of us out for dinner to catch up.
Thank you for the invite, Anastasia. Cool. No, all right, cool.
That's fine.
Have fun.
Yeah, thanks.
I would say tell her I say hi, but don't worry about it. Don't worry about it. My thanks to Laura Sebben for joining me today. My thanks to Matt Ingram. My thanks to Jason Gaidola as well. My thanks to Chantal Grillo for directing today's episode. And my thanks to you for tuning along. However you found us here on the Trending Now podcast, make sure to like and subscribe to CHCH Podcast so you never miss an episode of this show or any of the other great shows we have for you, including Newsmakers, which is another great podcast that's available on CHCH Podcast, wherever you get your favorite podcasts, or chch.com/podcasts. From all of us here at CHCH, I'm Louie Butko. Have a great weekend.